Well, Prince Andrew has also paid tribute to the Queen in a statement that was released earlier. He said, and addressed it to Mummy, Mother, Your Majesty, 3 in 1, he said with that photograph.
The strange silence of the royal funeral was suddenly pierced, not by sound, but by a look. Across the hall,
in the back of my mind for quite a while, the whole climate change debate. So I've always felt very strongly about it, and I've been watching very carefully what others have been doing. And for me, the urgency and the positivity.
Prince Andrew's eyes locked onto Catherine with a stare so cold, it sent shivers through those who saw it. William noticed instantly.
Do I regret the fact that he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming?
In a heartbeat, the grieving prince transformed, his posture sharpened, his instincts ignited. He rushed to Catherine's side, his every movement charged with protective urgency. Courtiers froze, guests whispered, and the air thickened with dread. What Andrew's gaze meant remains a mystery, but William's reaction left no doubt. He was ready to guard at all costs. The funeral of Catherine, Duchess of Kent, held at Westminster Cathedral on September 16th, marked a significant moment in royal history as the first Catholic funeral service for a member of the British royal family in modern times. What was intended to be a respectful farewell to the 92-year-old Duchess, who had been the oldest living member of the royal family, quickly became overshadowed by underlying family tensions that have plagued the House of Windsor for years. King Charles III led the mourners at this unprecedented service, which required special papal approval due to his role as Supreme Governor of the Church of England, attending a Catholic Mass. The king was joined by his son Prince William and daughter-in-law Catherine, Princess of Wales, while Queen Camilla was notably absent, having withdrawn from the event due to acute sinusitis as she recovered at Windsor Castle following the royal family's summer break at Balmoral. Among the family members present was Prince Andrew, Duke of York, making one of his increasingly rare public appearances since stepping back from royal duties in 2019. Andrew arrived at the cathedral alongside his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson, both maintaining appropriately somber expressions as they joined the other mourners. However, their presence immediately drew attention from royal watchers and photographers, who have become accustomed to Andrew's limited public visibility following his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The significance of Andrew's attendance cannot be understated. Since his disastrous Newsnight interview in 2019 and subsequent legal troubles, including a civil settlement with Virginia Giuffre, Andrew has been largely excluded from public royal events. His military titles and royal patronages were stripped away in 2022, and he has since lived a quiet life at Royal Lodge in Windsor. His appearances are now typically limited to private family gatherings and church services, making his presence at such a high-profile funeral all the more noteworthy. What made this particular occasion even more uncomfortable was the seating arrangement inside Westminster Cathedral. According to sources close to the royal family, Prince Andrew had been positioned directly behind Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. This placement meant that throughout the entire service, the future king and his wife would be acutely aware of Andrew's presence just inches behind them. The arrangement struck many observers as particularly awkward, given the well-documented tensions between William and his uncle. Royal experts have long noted Prince William's discomfort with his uncle's continued presence at family events. According to reports from multiple sources, William has been vocal about his desire to see Andrew completely removed from any royal functions, both public and private. A senior royal aide recently told reporters that William believes his father, King Charles, is allowing sentiment to override practical considerations when it comes to handling what many now refer to as the Andrew problem. The tension surrounding Andrew's presence at the funeral was palpable even before the service began. Royal photographer agencies noted the careful positioning of camera crews, who were clearly anticipating potential moments of family discord. The fact that Andrew's seating placed him in direct view of multiple camera angles seemed almost deliberate, creating opportunities for the kind of uncomfortable interactions that have become increasingly common at royal gatherings. The Duchess of Kent's funeral held particular emotional weight for the royal family. Catherine, who had been married to Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, was beloved within royal circles for her dedication to charitable causes and her decision to step back from the spotlight in later years. She had famously converted to Catholicism in 1994, becoming the first member of the royal family to do so since King Charles II on his deathbed in 1685. Her preference for privacy in her later years, including her decision to teach music at a state school in Hull under the name Mrs. Kent, had earned her widespread respect. This backdrop of honoring a respected family member made the underlying tensions even more jarring. Sources within the royal household described a sense of unease that permeated the entire event. Staff members were reportedly on high alert, aware that any interaction between William and Andrew would be scrutinized and potentially explosive given their strained relationship. The historical significance of the service itself added another layer of complexity to the day's events. Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the leader of Catholics in England and Wales, conducted the service, and Pope Francis had sent a special message acknowledging the king's attendance. This ecumenical gesture represented a significant step forward in relations between the Church of England and the Catholic Church, making it all the more unfortunate that family drama threatened to overshadow the religious and historical importance of the occasion. Photography from the event shows the clear physical distance maintained between different family factions. While King Charles, Prince William, and Catherine were photographed together in moments of apparent unity, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson appeared somewhat isolated, interacting primarily with each other rather than engaging with other family members. Body language experts later noted the careful choreography that seemed designed to minimize unwanted interactions. The media presence at the funeral was substantial, with royal correspondents from major British and international outlets documenting every moment of the service. The fact that this was taking place during the same week as President Trump's state visit to the UK added additional pressure and media attention to an already sensitive situation. Royal protocol experts had worked overtime to ensure that the solemnity of the funeral would not be compromised by political or family tensions. As the service progressed through its various stages, from the arrival of mourners to the formal requiem mass, observers noted the careful positioning and movement of family members. Prince William and Catherine remained close together throughout, their body language suggesting a unified front against any potential uncomfortable moments. Meanwhile, Andrew's positioning behind them created what one royal correspondent described as an unavoidable proximity that seemed to heighten tensions even during the most sacred moments of the service. The setting of Westminster Cathedral itself, with its Byzantine architecture and solemn atmosphere, provided a dramatic backdrop for what was unfolding. The cathedral's acoustic properties meant that even whispered conversations could potentially carry, adding another element of tension as family members navigated their interactions under the watchful eyes of both media and fellow mourners. This carefully orchestrated but clearly strained family gathering was setting the stage for what would become one of the most talked about royal moments in recent memory. As the conclusion of the service approached and family members prepared to leave the cathedral together. As the solemn requiem mass concluded and Cardinal Vincent Nichols delivered his final blessings, the congregation at Westminster Cathedral began the careful process of departing. The choreography of royal exits is typically planned down to the minute, with each family member knowing their precise position and timing. However, what unfolded as the royals made their way out of the cathedral would become one of the most discussed and analyzed moments in recent royal history. The departure process began with King Charles leading the way, followed by the senior royals in order of precedence. Prince William and Catherine, as the future king and queen consort, walked together in their designated positions, maintaining the dignified composure expected at such a solemn occasion. Behind them, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson prepared to follow, along with other family members, including Princess Anne and her husband Timothy Lawrence. It was during this transition from the sacred interior of the cathedral to the more public space outside that the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Royal photographers, positioned strategically around the cathedral's exit points, had their cameras ready to capture the formal departure shots that would appear in newspapers around the world. What they captured instead was a moment that would generate far more controversy than any standard funeral coverage. As the royal family gathered on the steps of Westminster Cathedral, with Cardinal Nichols greeting various family members and dignitaries, the careful spacing that had been maintained throughout the service began to break down. The informal nature of the post-service interactions meant that the rigid protocols observed inside the cathedral gave way to more natural and potentially more revealing human behaviors. Multiple camera angles captured what happened next. Prince Andrew, who had remained largely in the background throughout the service, found himself in closer proximity to Prince William and Catherine than had been the case during the formal proceedings. Royal correspondents later described this moment as when the underlying tensions that had been simmering throughout the service finally surfaced in a visible way. According to lip-reading expert Jackie Press, who analyzed the footage for several major publications, Andrew appeared to be attempting to engage William in conversation. However, the nature of this interaction was far from the casual family chat one might expect at such gatherings. Press noted that Andrew's approach seemed calculated and deliberate, rather than the spontaneous conversation between family members that might have appeared to casual observers. What struck multiple observers was not just Andrew's attempt at conversation, but his demeanor throughout these interactions. Royal watchers who have covered the family for decades noted something distinctly different about Andrew's behavior during these moments. Rather than the subdued, apologetic presence one might expect from someone in his position within the family, Andrew appeared almost confrontational in his approach. The most discussed aspect of this encounter was what several commentators described as Andrew's sustained and intense gaze directed toward Catherine. Unlike the brief, polite acknowledgments typical of such formal occasions, this look was prolonged and deliberate. Body language experts who later analyzed the footage noted that this was not the distracted glance of someone looking around a crowded space, but rather a focused and intentional stare. Judy James, a respected body language analyst, described the moment as carrying an unmistakable air of calculation. She noted that Andrew's expression during these moments was markedly different from his demeanor during the service itself, where he had maintained appropriate solemnity. The contrast suggested a deliberate shift in his approach once the formal constraints of the religious service had ended. What made this moment particularly striking was its timing and context. The Duchess of Kent's funeral represented one of the few occasions where Andrew had appeared publicly alongside senior working royals in recent years. Given his limited opportunities for such interactions, royal experts suggested that his behavior indicated a deliberate decision to make some kind of statement about his position within the family hierarchy. The intensity of Andrew's focus on Catherine was noted by multiple royal correspondents present at the scene. Unlike typical royal interactions, which are characterized by brief eye contact and polite acknowledgments, this sustained attention appeared to make other family members uncomfortable. Several photographers reported noticing other royals, including Princess Anne, glancing in Andrew's direction with what appeared to be concern about his behavior. Royal protocol expert Marlene Koenig later commented that such direct and sustained attention toward another royal, particularly in such a public setting, represented a significant departure from expected behavior. The informal nature of post-funeral gatherings typically allows for more relaxed interactions, but Andrew's approach seemed to push beyond the boundaries of appropriate family dynamics, especially given his current status within the royal hierarchy. The footage that captured this moment spread rapidly across social media platforms, with royal watchers and casual observers alike noting the uncomfortable nature of the interaction. Comments on various platforms described the moment as deeply unsettling and inappropriate for the occasion. The hashtag associated with the funeral began trending not because of the historical significance of the Catholic service, but because of this awkward family moment. What added to the significance of this moment was the broader context of Andrew's relationship with the working royals. Since stepping back from public duties, his interactions with family members like William and Catherine have become increasingly rare and strained, Royal biographers have documented the growing distance between Andrew and his nephews, particularly William, who has been vocal about his concerns regarding his uncle's impact on the monarchy's reputation. The fact that this uncomfortable interaction played out in such a public setting, with multiple cameras capturing every moment, seemed to highlight the fundamental tensions that exist within the royal family. Despite efforts to maintain a united front for public appearances, the underlying disagreements about Andrew's role and behavior continue to surface at family gatherings. Royal correspondents noted that the moment represented more than just an awkward family interaction. Given Andrew's limited public appearances and his controversial status within the royal family, his behavior at such a significant event was seen as potentially revealing his attitude toward his current position and his relationship with other family members. The sustained nature of Andrew's attention toward Catherine, combined with the calculated way he approached the entire post-service interaction, suggested to many observers that this was not simply an uncomfortable moment, but rather a deliberate attempt to assert his presence and perhaps challenge the family dynamics that have increasingly marginalized him in recent years. Prince William's response to his uncle's behavior was both immediate and unmistakable to those trained in reading royal body language. The future king, who has spent years mastering the art of diplomatic composure in public settings, found his carefully maintained facade cracking under the pressure of what he clearly perceived as an inappropriate and threatening situation developing right before his eyes. Royal correspondents who witnessed the scene firsthand reported that William's transformation was visible within seconds of Andrew's approach toward Catherine. The Prince of Wales, who had maintained his formal funeral demeanor throughout the service, suddenly shifted into what body language experts would later describe as a distinctly protective mode. His shoulders squared, his posture straightened, and his entire focus narrowed to the immediate threat he perceived his uncle was presenting to his wife. According to Judy James, who analyzed multiple camera angles of the interaction, William's body language indicated an instant assessment of the situation and an equally rapid decision about how to respond. His movements became more deliberate and purposeful, contrasting sharply with the relaxed, ceremonial pace that had characterized his behavior during the formal portions of the funeral service. This shift suggested that William was no longer operating under standard royal protocol, but rather under a more primal instinct to protect his family. The most noticeable aspect of William's response was his immediate repositioning relative to Catherine. Within moments of recognizing Andrew's sustained attention toward his wife, William moved closer to her, effectively creating what security experts call a human barrier between the perceived threat and the protected individual. This movement appeared natural and unforced, suggesting that William's protective instincts were operating almost subconsciously. The precision of William's protective positioning revealed years of security training that all senior royals receive. His placement allowed him to maintain visual contact with Andrew, while simultaneously shielding Catherine from direct interaction. Security experts who later analyzed the footage noted that William's positioning followed classic protective protocols, suggesting that his response was informed by both instinct and training. Lip-reading expert Jackie Press, who studied the footage extensively, noted that William's facial expressions during these moments told a story of barely controlled tension. His jaw visibly tightened, and his eyes moved in a pattern that suggested constant threat assessment. Rather than the distracted scanning typical of someone navigating a crowded social situation, William's gaze appeared focused and purposeful, repeatedly returning to Andrew's position and movements. The protective positioning that William adopted was not lost on other family members present at the scene. Royal photographers captured moments where Princess Anne appeared to notice the tension, her own body language suggesting awareness that something uncomfortable was developing. King Charles, while engaged in his own post-service conversations with Cardinal Nichols and other dignitaries, was also observed glancing toward his son and brother, with what appeared to be concern about the developing situation. The complexity of William's position at this moment cannot be understated. As the future king, he was expected to maintain family unity and avoid public confrontations that might embarrass the monarchy. However, As a husband, his primary concern was protecting Catherine from what he clearly perceived as inappropriate and potentially harmful behavior. The tension between these competing responsibilities was visible in his careful but determined responses to Andrew's approaches. When Andrew made his direct approach to attempt conversation with William, the Prince of Wales's response demonstrated a masterclass in diplomatic rejection. Video footage analyzed by multiple body language experts showed William employing a range of defensive techniques designed to discourage interaction without creating an obvious public confrontation. His positioning remained protective of Catherine throughout, never allowing Andrew to maneuver into a position where he might have direct access to the Princess of Wales. William's use of what experts call barrier gestures was particularly notable during Andrew's conversational attempts. He was observed touching his face, adjusting his clothing, and making other movements that created physical obstacles to normal interaction flow. At one point, cameras captured him rubbing his nose in what appeared to be a natural gesture, but which body language experts recognized as a classic defensive barrier. These gestures, while appearing natural to casual observers, served to communicate discomfort and disinterest in continuing the interaction. The sophistication of William's defensive strategy extended to his use of what communication experts call conversation control techniques. When Andrew attempted to engage him in dialogue, William's responses were minimal and non-encouraging. His verbal contributions, according to lip readers who analyzed the footage, consisted primarily of monosyllabic acknowledgments that provided no opening for extended conversation. This approach allowed him to remain technically polite while clearly signaling his unwillingness to engage. The most telling aspect of William's defensive posture was his refusal to engage in the normal reciprocal behaviors that characterize family conversations. When Andrew spoke, William avoided direct eye contact, instead looking past his uncle or focusing on other elements of the surrounding environment. This behavior, according to communication experts, represents one of the strongest possible signals of rejection short of verbal confrontation. The fact that William maintained this pattern throughout their interaction suggested a deliberate and sustained strategy rather than momentary discomfort. Royal sources who spoke to various media outlets after the event described William's internal state during these moments as one of controlled fury. A friend of the Prince of Wales told reporters that William felt completely ambushed by the situation, having expected that funeral protocols would prevent any uncomfortable interactions with his uncle. The source described William's anger as stemming not just from the inappropriate timing of Andrew's approach, but from the direct nature of his attention toward Catherine and the calculated way he seemed to be exploiting a solemn family occasion. The protective instincts that William displayed were noted by royal experts as being consistent with his behavior in other challenging situations involving his wife. Since their marriage, William has demonstrated a pattern of shielding Catherine from uncomfortable or potentially harmful situations, whether they involve media intrusion, public criticism, or family conflicts. His response to Andrew's behavior fit perfectly within this established pattern of protective behavior, but the intensity of his reactions suggested that he viewed this particular situation as especially threatening. What made William's response particularly striking was the contrast between his diplomatic training and his obvious emotional reaction to the situation. As someone who has been groomed from birth to handle difficult public situations with grace and composure, William's visible tension indicated that he perceived Andrew's behavior as crossing significant boundaries. The fact that his protective instincts overrode his diplomatic training suggested the seriousness with which he viewed the threat to Catherine. Body language expert James explained that William's positioning throughout the encounter demonstrated textbook protective behavior. He maintained physical proximity to Catherine, positioned himself between her and Andrew, and used his body language to signal that any interaction would have to go through him. These behaviors, while subtle enough to avoid creating an obvious public scene, were clear enough to communicate his intentions to anyone observing the situation carefully. The sustained nature of William's defensive posture also indicated that he did not view Andrew's approach as a brief, uncomfortable moment that would quickly pass. Instead, His behavior suggested an assessment that his uncle represented an ongoing threat that required continuous monitoring and management. This perception was reflected in his consistent attention to Andrew's movements and his maintenance of protective positioning throughout their time outside the cathedral. Royal photographers present at the scene reported that William's protective behavior extended beyond just the immediate interaction with Andrew. Throughout the entire post-service period, he remained hyper-aware of his surroundings and Catherine's position relative to other family members and guests. This heightened alertness suggested that William's concerns about the situation extended beyond just his uncle's immediate behavior to encompass the broader dynamics of the family gathering. The effectiveness of William's protective strategy was evident in the fact that Andrew was ultimately unable to engage Catherine directly in conversation or interaction. Despite his apparent attempts to draw attention to himself and assert his presence at the family gathering, Andrew found himself consistently blocked by William's strategic positioning and defensive behavior. The success of this protective approach demonstrated William's ability to manage family conflicts while maintaining public dignity. Catherine's own response during these moments also indicated her awareness of the tension and her trust in William's protective measures. Body language experts noted that she remained close to her husband throughout the uncomfortable interactions, suggesting both her recognition of the awkward situation and her confidence in William's ability to manage it appropriately. This protective response from William would later be praised by royal supporters as evidence of his commitment to his wife and his readiness to defend his family against any perceived threats, regardless of their source within the royal hierarchy. The incident demonstrated that when it comes to protecting Catherine, William's role as a husband takes precedence over his obligations as a future king to maintain family unity at all costs. The immediate aftermath of the tense encounter outside Westminster Cathedral revealed the depth of Prince William's frustration with what he perceived as a calculated ambush by his uncle. Sources close to the Prince of Wales, speaking to various media outlets in the days following the funeral, described William as being genuinely furious about the entire situation. The anger was not just about the uncomfortable moment itself, but about what it represented in terms of Andrew's apparent willingness to exploit even the most solemn family occasions for his own purposes. A friend of William's, speaking to the Daily Beast, characterized the entire situation as an absolute disgrace. The source revealed that William felt completely blindsided by Andrew's positioning during the service and his subsequent behavior during the departure. The friend explained that William has spent considerable effort over recent years attempting to avoid being photographed alongside Andrew, understanding the potential damage such images could cause to the monarchy's reputation. The strategic seating arrangement at the funeral had made such avoidance impossible, creating exactly the kind of situation William had worked so hard to prevent. The source further elaborated that William's anger extended beyond the immediate discomfort of the situation to encompass broader concerns about Andrew's judgment and his apparent lack of understanding about his current position within the royal family. The fact that Andrew seemed willing to create uncomfortable moments at a family funeral demonstrated, in William's view, a fundamental disconnect from reality about his role and responsibilities as a member of the royal family, even in his diminished capacity. Royal correspondents noted that William's response to the funeral incident appeared to solidify his already firm stance regarding Andrew's future within the monarchy. Multiple sources within the royal household suggested that the encounter had strengthened William's resolve to ensure that Andrew would have no place in the royal family's future under his eventual reign. This position represents a significant hardening of William's attitude, moving from reluctant tolerance of Andrew's presence at private family events to complete exclusion from any royal functions whatsoever. Royal expert Hilary Fordwich, speaking to Fox News in the aftermath of the funeral, explained that William's approach to the Andrew problem has become increasingly uncompromising over time. She noted that William's stance is driven by his deep understanding of public opinion and his commitment to protecting the monarchy's reputation. Fordwich emphasized that William recognizes the damage Andrew's continued association with the royal family causes to the institution's credibility, and he is determined to prevent any further erosion of public trust. The expert analysis suggested that William's position on Andrew is informed by extensive polling data and public opinion research that consistently shows Andrew ranking at the bottom of royal popularity surveys. This data reinforces William's belief that maintaining any association with Andrew, even at private family events, represents an unacceptable risk to the monarchy's future. The funeral incident served to confirm William's assessment that Andrew cannot be trusted to behave appropriately, even in the most constrained circumstances. The viral nature of the footage from the funeral departure added another dimension to William's frustration. Video clips of the awkward interaction between William and Andrew were viewed hundreds of thousands of times across various social media platforms, with commentary ranging from sympathy for William's difficult position to criticism of Andrew's apparent insensitivity to the situation. The widespread public attention focused on this uncomfortable family moment demonstrated exactly why William has been so concerned about public appearances with his uncle. Social media reactions to the incident were overwhelmingly supportive of William's handling of the situation. Many commenters praised his protective instincts toward Catherine and his diplomatic management of an obviously uncomfortable encounter. The phrase, "a case study in please STFUism," became associated with the viral clip, capturing the public's appreciation for William's restrained but clear rejection of Andrew's conversational attempts. This public support likely reinforced William's belief that his approach to managing Andrew is aligned with public expectations. The incident also highlighted the ongoing rift between William and his father, King Charles, regarding how to handle Andrew's position within the family. Royal sources have consistently reported that William and Charles disagree fundamentally about Andrew's role, with Charles viewing the situation through the lens of family loyalty, while William prioritizes institutional protection. A senior aide, speaking to royal writer Rob Shooter, confirmed that this disagreement continues to create tension between father and son. The aide explained that William believes Charles is allowing sentiment to override practical considerations when it comes to Andrew. William's position is that Andrew should be completely excluded from royal life, both public and private, while Charles continues to see his brother as a family member, deserving of some level of inclusion in family gatherings. This philosophical difference has created what the source described as the rift threatening to tear the palace apart, with William becoming increasingly frustrated by what he sees as his father's inability to make the hard decisions necessary to protect the monarchy. The funeral incident provided concrete evidence for William's argument that Andrew cannot be trusted to behave appropriately even at private family events. The fact that Andrew chose to create uncomfortable moments at such a solemn occasion demonstrated, in William's view, exactly why complete exclusion is the only viable solution. This evidence has reportedly strengthened William's position in ongoing discussions with his father about Andrew's future role. Looking toward the future, royal experts suggest that the funeral incident has effectively sealed Andrew's fate regarding any potential rehabilitation within the royal family. William's reaction and the subsequent public attention have made it clear that any hopes Andrew might have harbored about gradually working his way back into royal life are unrealistic. The future king's opposition to such rehabilitation appears absolute and unwavering. The implications for Andrew's living situation at Royal Lodge have also become a topic of increased speculation following the funeral incident. Reports suggest that the uncomfortable public attention generated by Andrew's behavior has intensified discussions about his continued residence at the prestigious Windsor property. Some royal experts believe that the incident has provided additional ammunition for those within the royal household who believe Andrew should be relocated to more modest accommodations that better reflect his current status within the family. The impact on Catherine's position within these family dynamics has also been noted by royal observers. The fact that she appeared to be the specific target of Andrew's uncomfortable attention has reinforced her role as someone who needs protection from the more problematic elements within the extended royal family. This situation has further solidified William's reputation as a protective husband, willing to prioritize his wife's comfort and safety over family harmony. Royal biographers have noted that the funeral incident fits into a broader pattern of William's evolution as a future king. His willingness to take firm positions on difficult family issues, even when they create conflict with his father, demonstrates the kind of decisive leadership many believe will characterize his eventual reign. The incident showed William's ability to balance multiple competing priorities while maintaining public dignity and protecting those he cares about most. The long-term consequences of the funeral encounter extend beyond just the immediate family dynamics to encompass broader questions about the monarchy's future direction. William's handling of the situation has been seen as a preview of how he intends to manage the institution when he becomes king, with a clear emphasis on protecting the monarchy's reputation and maintaining public trust, even when it requires making difficult decisions about family members. The public's overwhelmingly positive response to William's protective behavior toward Catherine has also reinforced the couple's position as the future of the royal family. Their apparent unity in the face of family difficulties has been contrasted favorably with the ongoing controversies surrounding other family members. This public support provides William with additional confidence in his approach to managing difficult family situations. The incident has also had implications for future royal events and gatherings. Royal protocol experts suggest that the uncomfortable nature of the funeral encounter will likely influence planning for future family occasions, with increased attention paid to seating arrangements and interaction opportunities. The goal will be to prevent similar situations while maintaining appropriate family relationships within the constraints of current circumstances. For Catherine personally, the incident has reportedly reinforced her appreciation for William's protective instincts, while also highlighting the ongoing challenges she faces as a senior member of the royal family. Sources close to the princess suggest that while she was uncomfortable with Andrew's behavior, she was impressed by William's skillful management of the situation and his ability to maintain dignity while clearly establishing boundaries. The aftermath of the funeral incident has thus become a defining moment in the ongoing evolution of the royal family's internal dynamics, with William's response serving as a clear statement about his priorities and his vision for the monarchy's future under his eventual leadership.